And we are live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Take a deep breath and relax. Welcome to Knowledge Lecture number 4. Presupposition. Presupposition is the opposite of the before form. This is the after form of presupposition. Here you are presuming that the person will go into trance by mentioning or asking about things that will or could occur after the trance is over. As the mesmerist, you might say, after you come out of trance, you may remember everything that happened, or it may be like a dream that fades more and more as time goes on. You can also use verb tense in a deliberate way to imply the end of a trance. For example, the mesmerist might say, "How was that? Was the trance different from what you expected?" In the third form of presupposition, you never doubt that the person will go into trance, but only speculate or ask about the rate at which he or she will go into trance. For example, the hypnotist might say, "How quickly do you think you can go into trance?" "I don't know, it's different for each person." Or perhaps, "You can go into a trance state at your own rate and pace. You don't have to go any more quickly than is appropriate for you." A note on timing. Initially, timing may seem the same as rate, but this form of presupposition speculates or asks about the exact timing of the trance, while still presuming that trance will happen. A mesmerist might encode by saying, when will you go into trance?" "I really don't know, and you really don't know. Your consciousness will decide, and let both of us know." Or perhaps a hypnotist might invoke, "Will you go into trance now, or not until the next session? Only time will tell." Another aspect of presupposition is depth. You are speculating or asking about how deeply the person will go into trance. Remember, you are not questioning or casting doubt on whether the person will enter trance, only the depth of trance. Thus, a mesmerist might say the following: "Will you go into a light, medium, or deep trance state?" You only need to go as deeply as you need to go to get to the results you want. How much more deeply into trance will you go? Other aspects of presupposition are means, pathways, or method. Here you are using speculation about how the person will go into trance as a medium for presuming that he or she will achieve a trance state. The mesmerist can say, "Will you find yourself losing track of your body as you go into a trance state? I don't know. Perhaps you will just start drifting into your own thoughts or experiences as you go deeper and deeper into the trance state." The hypnotherapist could say, "There are a number of different ways to go into trance. I'm sure yours will be as unique as your fingerprints." The next form of presupposition is awareness. You are speculating or questioning only whether the person has noticed, is noticing, or will notice something about going into trance, not that the person will go into trance. Thus, the mesmerist could say, "I wonder what you are aware of as you go deeper and deeper into the trance state." A hypnotist could say, "Perhaps you are noticing some different sensations. Perhaps you're very focused on my voice as you go deeper and deeper into the trance state." Or you might say, have you noticed the shifts in your breathing as you continue to go deeper into trance? Are you aware of going deeper yet? It is okay if you aren't. Next up is verb tenses in the form of presupposition. Although I have discussed verb tenses in earlier parts of this section, let's visit this skill in more detail. Erickson used verb tenses in various ways to imply change and trance, to shift time orientation, and to confuse. And you will then have to know what I will have been expecting you to have learned. I once heard him say, to keep themes, readers aside, oh, mistake, I'll restart. To keep things simple, we'll stick to the past, present, and future. For example, if you would like to invite the person to more fully experience something that is in the past or the future, you could switch to the present tense. For example, what are you doing now? And how does that aid in going even deeper? Where are you now? What are you seeing? How do you feel? Or a mesmerist might say, okay, it's now 5 years in the future, and you have gotten through the trouble you had so many years ago and come out the other side long ago. What are you doing in your life right now? How do you feel? How is the newfound strength that you're experiencing adding to the vitality of everything in your life? As we discussed earlier, if you want to imply that trance was over without formally telling the person to come out of trance, you could use past tense language. A mesmerist might say, how was that? Was that different from what you expected? Obviously, there are variations on the use of verb tense, and some of you may want to explore this skill more, but we will leave it there for now. As we go on to the next skill, splitting. The human mind has a tendency to dichotomize and split things apart to make distinctions. Western cultures, we divide our calendars into BC and AD. We divide the day up into hours and minutes, the year into days and months and seasons. We can continue this tendency ad nauseum. We can use this tendency to facilitate the process of trance and induction and treatment. This is called splitting. By splitting, I mean two things: dividing previously unified concepts or experiences into parts, or creating all new distinctions. Making distinctions. In hypnosis, the distinctions we propose are often between the consciousness and the unconscious, but they could be between any aspect of experience and another aspect of experience. We could propose, as Descartes, a split between the mind and the body, or between the front of the mind and the back of the mind, or one part of the person and another part. It is common for us to make these types of distinctions up and down, left and right. It's how we orient in the spatial world. We also orient by means of time, with the past, present, and future, another false dichotomy of the human mind. The mesmerist might encode language such as, you have a conscious mind, and communicate with a deeper level via the subconscious to an even unconscious state of mind. The mesmerist might say, you could listen with your mind, but I'm really talking to your body. The hypnotherapist might use language of this sort to highlight and invoke the split. One part of you could be confused, and another part of you can understand perfectly. Splitting something previously considered one thing into more parts. Here, the mesmerist reconsiders something previously thought of as one thing, instead of breaking it down into at least two parts. This is sometimes done to bypass resistance and sometimes to shift thinking. You can see that by splitting things, you might isolate the critical factor and thus speak directly to the subconscious mind. A mesmerist could say, you could have the feeling that you have had when watching a favorite scene in a movie without remembering what that scene is. And the client might express fears by, I'm afraid of hypnosis because I like to be in control. And thus the mesmerist might respond with, well, there is old style hypnosis, which involved the hypnotist controlling the subject. What I do is a new form of hypnosis, and you'll be in control. What I'll be is more like a coach or guide, suggesting possibilities for things for you can do inside and that you could consider. These possibilities are only invitations. You will decide which to take up or respond to. You have ultimate freedom and control. Note that here, the mesmerist has proposed a split between the old style of hypnosis and the new, improved, more gentle and less intrusive style of hypnosis that we study in this course of the 100-Day Challenge, Hypno Apotheosis. Next is making the split non-verbally as well as verbally. Let us consider the following. It's possible and important to make splits non-verbally as well as verbally. Non-verbal splitting is usually done using different voice tones, voice volumes, and spatial locations for the voice. If the person's eyes are open, there could be visual splitting. Erickson often used different voice tones and volumes when he was speaking about the unconscious than when he was speaking about the conscious processes. He also leaned to one side when speaking of the unconscious and to the other side when speaking of the conscious. That way, even when the person's eyes were closed, he or she could still hear these changes, often not consciously noticing them, and respond appropriately to the distinction. Thus takes care of splitting. Thank you for tuning in, dear listener. I hope that you enjoyed the presentation. And as you come back into the waking world from your knowledge lectures lesson, you could find that you want to listen to it again and again in order to get all of the subtle distinctions of the lesson material. And as a result, you find that you're more easily and naturally retaining the information and excited for the next presentation. You could find that your expectation of the next knowledge lecture is growing more and more consistent with the amount of time you dedicate to study. I hope that you return, and if it was your first time, don't let it be your last time. Please don't forget to hit the thumbs up on the way out the door, and I'll see you in the abodes of the future. Ad astra per aspera der aspirant. Into the future we roam.